Hello, I'm Matthew Carlson, and today I'm going to talk to you about fighting in the NHL. The sport of hockey is different than many other sports, in that fighting, for the most part, is allowed and at times even encouraged. Fighting has always played a large role in hockey. Whenever there's a Wayne Gretzky, there's also a Marty McSorley or a Dave Semenko to act kind of as bodyguards of sort. Hockey fans look back with pride at the days of the Broad Street Bullies, the Big Bad Bruins, and the legendary Detroit versus Colorado rivalry. Lately, with all the concussion research being done, and the sports world being under fire about protecting the head, the NHL has been on the brink of losing fighting for good. In this speech, I'll tell you about the possible mental health issues, the fan appreciation of fighting, and finally the impact that fighting has on safety. So to start, obviously, everyone loves watching the fighting in hockey. There's just something about two guys or two people throwing punches at each other. That's the reason why boxing was so big, and why now MMA, mixed martial arts, is starting to take over as the next big thing, and why we love when we go to a hockey game, when a heated hockey game turns to a fight, two guys swinging at each other. On Twitter, there's even an account just simply called Hockey Fights, and it has just under 50,000 followers. And the YouTube video of the infamous Red Wings Avalanche Brawl 1997 has over 1.5 million views, and still climbing. According to the Star, after a day of hockey action, well over half of the fights make it to the highlight reel. The score showed that while 2/3 of all goals scored make it to the highlights, 54% of the fights receive airtime. One night, 7 of the evening's 8 fights were all featured in the highlight packages. When asked about his highlight package called Friday Night Fights, Mike English said, "We know from viewer response they like to see the fights, so we put them in, and we don't apologize for it." Now, obviously, even though the fans love it, there's some downsides. We see mental health awareness has increased greatly in our society, as it should. And mental health is definitely a cause of concern when you're taking fists at the head. There's the hashtag #BellLet'sTalk. It's a hashtag you see on Twitter, where every tweet that uses the hashtag, a certain amount of money is donated towards research for mental illnesses. The hashtag doesn't only pertain to the hockey community, but the hockey community supports it immensely because of the impact that mental health issues have had on the hockey community. For instance, Derek Boogaard, Wade Bullock, and Rick Rypien. 3 guys that were fighters in the NHL back about a decade ago when fighting was still kind of a major part of the NHL. The 3 guys that died all in 2011. In just one offseason, all 3 NHL enforcers died just about months apart. First was Boogaard, who was found dead after mixing pills and alcohol, followed by a pair of suicides by Rypien and then Bullock. The 2011 offseason was a sad time for the NHL, and fighting in the league became a lot more controversial. Per ESPN, 10 former NHL players are actually suing the league, claiming that the NHL knew or should have known about the scientific evidence that players who sustain repeated head injuries are at greater risk for illnesses and disabilities both during their hockey careers and later in life, and that although the NHL ran a study on concussions from 1997 until 2004, they didn't do anything further to protect a player's head until 2010, 6 years later, when they made it a penalty to hit a player in the head with a body check. But now you don't only get the mental health issues, the concussions from fighting. That's actually kind of a smaller part of it, because when the 2 guys are on each other, not often are fists connecting super hard. A lot of times it comes from the hits from behind, the hits to the heads, and just the general cheap shots and the cheap plays that happen in the course of a hockey game. So it may sound odd to say, but violence can actually turn to safety. Just as a bouncer at a bar can preserve the peace, a good enforcer can do the same in a game of hockey. If there were no repercussions for me punching someone in the face, I'd be punching a lot of people in the face. But I don't do it because I'm small and weak, so if I punch someone, they're going to punch me back, or one of their friends doesn't punch me back, and you don't do it. But that same theory is true in the NHL. What would stop a player from throwing the other team's star player headfirst into the boards if it wasn't for the fact that he would definitely be getting a whooping from the big guys on the other team? You could even argue that part of what made Gretzky as great as he was the fact he always had protection by his side to deter the other team. He was always in a line with someone like Dave Semenko or Marty McSorley, who weren't nearly as talented as he was, but they were big and strong, and the coaches knew that no one was going to mess with Gretzky, nobody was going to hit him in the head, because that player knew that if they hit Gretzky, they were getting punched in the face, they were getting beat up. It's kind of the same idea as why the president is always surrounded by Secret Service. But who knows this better than the players who have been there and done that? So CBC ran a survey on current players. They said we're going to go straight to the players and ask them what they think about fighting, and it is almost unanimous, with 98% of players thinking that fighting should be in the game. Some of the players' opinions are as follows. NHL forward Sean Horkoff says that, I think there'd be a lot more guys running around, a lot more high sticks, a lot more hits from behind if we took fighting out of the game. An NHL fighter, Jared Bull, said, I think you'd see more concussions just by people being dumb on the ice and running around and knowing that they don't have to face anyone or answer the bell if they do something stupid. So now that I've told you about the mental health concerns of fighting, the fans' appreciation for it, and how fighting can actually reduce the number of concussions and make the game a little bit safer, you can take this information, form your own opinion on fighting, and follow it through the news for the years to come. Because if you follow the hockey news at all, this is going to be a talking point. And probably for the rest of the time, this is going to be one of the major talking points about NHL.